Welcome to It Feels Like Home, the podcast where real life stories contain moments of faith. I'm Lisa Shudell, and I'm here to share stories of God moments. Whether you're listening on your morning drive, taking a walk, or folding laundry, I hope you find comfort and encouragement. Hey, welcome, Brandy.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. Brandy Black is a friend of mine. We both work at Keller Williams, and trying to think, I met her when I first was a new agent. She was assistant to one of the productivity coaches for new agents, and met her briefly. She's been the team leader, and now she's active in real estate, and she's doing very, very well. I think because Brandy has a gift of just wanting to help other people. And so God has blessed her with a very good first year in real estate. So I'm very proud of her and happy to have her in my life. I'd love for you, Brandy, to introduce yourself and kind of tell us about your family, where you live, what you do with your days.
Yeah. So I'm a mom. I've been and a wife. I've been married for 34 years to my husband, high school sweethearts. And we have two grown-ish children. They're 24 today. My son turned 24 today. And I have another son who's 20. He'll be 21 at the end of this year. We live in Marietta, Georgia. And I'm a dog grandma and a cat grandma. So we've got two dogs and two cats that belong to my boys, but of course we play the grandparent role. Lived in Cobb County pretty much my whole life. I mean, 53, almost 54 years. We've been residents of Cobb County.
Great. Awesome. So obviously the theme of this podcast is God's stories.
Mm-hmm.
So could you share with us kind of your background and like, were you raised, with faith, or at what point in your life can you remember first believing in God or understanding your relationship with him?
Yeah. So I was, I was raised by a single mom. So my mom, I never knew my biological father. My mom was an older mom. She was in her 40s. And when I was born, so I always say I wasn't a baby. I was an oh my God baby. Like my mom thought she was definitely through the raising kids phase. Came along kind of later in life. And because my mom was a single mom, I was really raised a lot by my grandmother from probably till I was around 6 years old. I spent a ton of time with my grandmother, who was a really traditional Southern Baptist woman. So we went to church on Sundays. My grandmother made sure that I was always with her, and we went to church and went to church camp, which is where I remember getting saved, was at church camp. Just always, my grandmother really always made sure that we were, involved in church, that I had a really good foundation. Because I did not have that in my day-to-day life with my mom. My mom was religious, but she was busy. She was trying to make sure that we were, fed and housed and all the things. And then my mom remarried when I was 6 years old. But I think my grandmother's faith really is where my foundation came from, was just those years of being with her and being in church. I was always drawn to, use my religion as kind of my building block.
Okay, great. So what was your concept of God? Like, do you remember, like you said, you got saved in camp, but can you kind of tell us like what that experience was? What changed?
I think it's when I first realized like life was bigger than I was. I think when you're a kid, right, you just feel like your whole world revolves around you and your family. And I think for me, it was like realizing that there was something else bigger than that out there, that was like, that's where purpose came from. That's where love came from. And so, I was drawn to that, and it really just opened up like, the fact that life wasn't about me, it was about something bigger than me. And so when I got saved, I mean, I really felt like, I asked God to come into my heart, and it changed my heart. And I've always felt really grounded by that. I've been in and out of church as far as like active in church, but my faith has never wavered.
Okay, very good. Can you describe a specific moment when you felt like God clearly intervened in your life? Maybe a big decision, or you were doing something and he said, no, that's not what I want you to do. Can you think of a big moment?
I can think of so many big moments, to be honest, because, I don't really believe in like coincidence or things just happening. I believe everything is orchestrated by God. And so for me, it's just over and over and over again that I feel like he shows up. But probably one of the biggest biggest things that I can really remember is that I married young, right? Got married at 19, my high school sweetheart. And I was born to an older mom. So, my mom was aged by the time I was in my 20s. And my mom passed away when I was 27. And I always knew I wanted kids, but it wasn't until that moment. Well, I shouldn't say that. I wanted kids, right? And my mom and I would talk about it all the time. But I wasn't like committed to it. It was kind of like, if we have kids, it'll be great. And then, my mom passed away, and that seed of having my own family got planted really deep in my heart. And I was like, I really want my own family. And I was 27 at the time. And my husband and I, decided that we were going to intentionally try to have kids. And it did not come easy for us. Like, it just was not something that was easy. And people would always say to me, well, maybe God didn't intend for you to have kids. Maybe that isn't the path. And I just remember, because it's just hard enough when you're going through that. But I remember always thinking, no, God put that seed in my heart. I know he planted that seed to be a mother. I know that that's what I'm supposed to do. And I do not believe that he would put that seed in my heart if he didn't plan to fulfill that desire. I had such a burning desire for that. And I just stayed really faithful, like wherever God led me in that journey. And it was a really difficult journey. And it wasn't always, like if it's meant to be, it'll be. I felt like God, really led me to make really hard decisions and do things. But I always leaned on his guidance during that time, because I just knew that if he put that in my heart, that he meant to have it in my hand. And so I just used, my faith to guide me through that journey. And now I have 2 boys. And that's one of many, many stories I could tell where I just was, I would always reflect back, like, is that what God wants for me? And as soon as I feel like, yes, that's what God wants for me, then he opens doors and I run through them. And I think it scares a lot of people sometimes, but I just have always been that way. I feel like if he puts that seed and that desire in my heart, and I just have to trust and run through the doors. And he opened doors, and I was blessed to have 2 beautiful boys.
That's great. That's great. What about, can you think of something maybe more recent that's happened?
Every day.
Yes.
Yeah, I made a big life choice. I made a career decision about a year ago. And it was at a I don't want to say low point, but it was a low point for me career-wise, right? Where I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I've always felt like leadership and serving was really like what I'm supposed to do. Like, my cup gets full by serving and loving other people. And about a year ago, I had kind of a shift in my career, and I was like, okay, God, what, if this is meant for me, you've got to help me through this time. And honestly, I just continued, I just continued to like lean on that faith. And even in the down times where I was building a new business and I wasn't sure how I was going to pay my bills, I can remember my husband and I, standing at the kitchen counter, opening mail, and there would be like a $700 check in there, and was like, did we know we were getting this? Like, this is a refund from something from a year ago. And I would just be like, but God did, he did.
Yeah.
And so, during the last year, I think he's shown up so much in my life, and it's always just like, okay, I see you, God. I see you showing up. I see you, clearing the path. I see you opening doors that sometimes, like, I didn't want to run through. Like, I'm a licensed real estate agent. I have been for years, but I didn't really want to get back in production. And God kept nudging me and nudging me and nudging me. And even though I didn't want to, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't think this is what I want to do. I just kept opening the doors and opening the doors and opening the doors. And now that I'm a year on the other side of that, I'm like, oh, I see what you were doing, right? This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel fulfilled. I feel happy. I feel like I'm serving. I feel like I'm providing for my family. But there was a lot of trust in that, where it would have been easier for me to pivot and go back to the corporate world. But I just felt like, I was like, God, if this is what you want me to do, like, show me the next stair. I heard a podcast the other day, and it said God never is going to show us the whole staircase. He's always going to provide light enough for us to see the next stair. And then that's where faith comes from, because he's never going to show you the whole staircase. He's just going to show you the next step. And that's where you have to trust and have faith. And I feel like that's where my last year has been. It's been one baby step at a time. But as he's shown me light on that stair, I've taken it. And I think that's faith.
Yes. Yes. That's one of the things I love about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's scary. Not everybody around me always sees what I see or sees the door. And, luckily my family, my kids, my husband, they're very supportive of my decision making, because sometimes they don't see the next stair, but I feel like I see it and I feel led, and they luckily love and trust me, and they follow, because sometimes they don't see the step. I just do.
Right. I think a lot of people experience that, especially the people closest to you sometimes, want to protect you, and you just have to be strong in your faith and believe, and kind of communicate that, right? That I'm trusting God and I'm going for it. And that's what you did. And That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's
When,
scary. I think a lot of times people feel like
yeah,
that, if you're leading, it shouldn't be scary, but it is scary. That's
it
faith.
is.
It's doing it even though fear is screaming in your ear, and it's
Absolutely.
saying, don't do it. It's not the right thing. This is not going to work out. But faith is doing it anyways, even though fear is screaming in your ear because you feel clearly that God's leading that next step.
When God is directing you, how do you know, how do you know that God is speaking to you or that God is opening the doors? Like, how do you feel confident that it's a God thing and not something you want or something that's not for you?
That's a great question because I feel like when it's something God's leading me to do, it comes from the inside, right? It's not external. It's not somebody telling me. It's not an external decision, right? Where I'm making a decision because of something I need or want. I feel like I'm making a decision because I feel it from the inside, right? It comes from
Right.
my heart. And like, it's just as clear as day for me. But I don't listen to external, what the world's telling me, what my friends are telling me. Of course, I consult my husband, but sometimes even when he's telling me, right? If I
Uh-huh.
feel it on the inside, I feel like that's coming from God.
So would you say it's more of a feeling or do you ever hear a voice?
The intuition, maybe it
Uh-huh.
is a voice. I don't know. But I feel like I always say I've always been led by my gut or my intuition. Maybe that's my way of saying that it's God. It just
Uh-huh.
feels like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So I don't necessarily hear it as a voice. I hear
Uh-huh.
it as an energy that's pushing me to do something. And it comes from the inside, my belly, right? My heart. I feel it on
Okay.
the inside. So I don't know that I hear it necessarily. Maybe I'm not an auditory person, but I definitely feel it from the inside. And I believe that intuition is really God leading me.
That's interesting because I recently was talking to somebody about how different people learn. Like some people are auditory, some people are more visual. I know I'm auditory. Like if I'm trying to learn something new, I listen. I listen to audiobooks. I don't, that's how I learn is by
Mhm.
hearing. And you can kind of tell by maybe words that people use. If you say like, does that sound good? Or do you see what I mean? It kind of gives you a clue. So I think that's interesting that that's how you, because I hear a lot of times a voice when God speaks to me. It's like, it's funny. It's kind of my own voice, but it's so strong that, and usually I know it's God when it's something that maybe wouldn't have been my choice or my idea.
Right.
And I'm like, that's got to be coming from God because that is not, that's not what I would want necessarily,
Yeah, I think that's
or
a
it's
great way to think
maybe,
about it.
yeah.
Because I think a
So
lot of times we think like, well, is he speaking to me? But I'm an experiential learner. So I learn by doing. And so I think God speaks to me in that way.
I think you're right. I think that's interesting. I hadn't
Mhm.
thought about that until
Yeah.
the way you described it, because some of the people that I've been interviewing will say, they had a dream or they heard a voice, but you're more just intuitive. So
Yeah.
I think it's a feeling.
Hmm.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Because I think, the different people that may listen to this podcast or watch it might think more about themselves and how is God communicating with them? Because it could be different. God communicates with you the way he created you,
That's right. That's right.
right?
And it's not going to be the same for everybody, right? So some people
Right.
might be waiting to hear him. And the truth is that's not how he's going to show up for you, right? So you're
Right.
right. I think he speaks to you in the way that you were created to receive.
Yeah. Interesting.
And he knows.
Yeah, he does. I guess, well, you kind of already answered this question, but I would like you to think about if somebody is listening to this podcast and they either don't believe or they're feeling really alone right now or distant from God, what would you want to tell them about his character?
What I'll say is, I think we've all been through seasons where we've let ourselves get away, right? Let us get distant, but he's never distant. We may be distant from him, but he is never distant from us. And I think, it's never hard to get back. And I think sometimes we overthink that, like, oh, I've been backslidden or I've not made good decisions or I've not been to church or I haven't read the Bible or I'm not in my faith. And it's going to be so hard to get back to that. But the truth is that he's right there. And it's not hard because he never leaves us. We may look the other way. We may make different decisions, but he's always by our side. And so I think don't overthink it. If you really feel like in your heart, it's, that you need to get back, he's right there. It's not as hard as it feels.
That's great. I always wonder too if anyone just happens upon this podcast and they don't even believe, maybe they feel like there is no God or they've never felt like God was real, and what would you say to them?
Gosh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think to know there is a God, I think you just have to look around you.
Mhm.
I mean, if you look around, not everything makes total sense in our lives, and
Right.
that's just God.
Yeah.
Like I think if you try to put it on science or, anything else, like one plus one doesn't equal two. And I think the only way to make it make sense is that there's a God. And and that just makes everything make sense in my mind. Like I'm not one who, wants to overthink it because it doesn't all make sense. But God can make anything make sense even when it really just doesn't make sense.
Right.
I think you just have to look around, and think
Mm.
look for it. Where has things showed up that make no sense, right? Where have things
Mhm.
happened that you're like, I'm not really sure how that happened. That's God,
Yeah.
that's God. And I think you may want to try to think that it's not, but it is. It's him just being there, making things happen for you. So
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
around.
Look around. Love it. Well, I can't thank you enough, Brandy, for doing this. I really appreciate you and your friendship.
Same.
And
You've
yes,
been
I
such an
know.
instrumental part of just my mindset over the past, I don't even know how long we've been, years, but for sure, probably the last 6 or 8 months that we've talked every
Right.
day. Lisa and I'll talk almost every day. You've been so great, right? Because you're so high minded. And, it's even for someone who has faith you know, um, and I know it's hard sometimes. You need people in your life that are going to hold you up and hold your
Mhm.
standard and help you see when maybe sometimes you're not feeling like you can see it. I think we all have those moments. So grateful
Mhm.
that I have someone like you in my life who sometimes helps me see get clarity, because we can talk ourselves into a lot of terrible things. And so I think surrounding yourself with someone or people that are going to help you make sure that you stay close to God and stay grounded and keep clarity and keep a high mind is so important because you can't really do it. God created us for community. And I think that's
Right.
one of the things that COVID did as a disservice is that it isolated us. And some people have stayed in that isolation, but God
Yeah.
created us for community. And so find someone in
Absolutely.
your life that you feel like it's going to hold standard for you. And for me, it's a lot of people. You help me hold a standard in my
Mhm.
business and my mindset. I have friends that help me hold standards. I have my husband who helps me hold standards. But make sure that you have a community that's going to make sure that you keep your standards up and that you stay close in your faith.
Yes. Yes. And we have a few minutes left. I'd love for you to share a little bit about your business that you do with coaching people.
Yeah, yeah. So I've always said I'm a small business coach. I've been a small business coach for over 20 years. I started my business career in the direct sale industry. It's another thing that Lisa and I have in common. So I started in the direct sale industry and back when my boys were really small. Loved the business, really loved building people and fell in love with that side of leadership. It's just coaching and training people. Luckily, that's carried me through multiple industries. I left the direct sale world, got into real estate because of my coaching, and my mission and my purpose is to love, care, serve, and build other people. And that's just what my mission in life is. I feel like that's been so clear for me my entire career. So I moved into coaching, and now I coach real estate agents from all across the world. I won't say world, all across the country:
Mhm.
Hawaii, California, Colorado, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina. And so I help them build their business, right? I help them create standards, hold standards. We call it kind of like a GPS in our business world, but I help agents create that guide, that plan, that model, hold them accountable to what they say they want to accomplish in their business, but also in their life. Because what I think we have to remember is that our business is only as good as our spiritual life, our emotional life, our physical life. And so it's really coaching to the whole person and not just to the business. Because if
Uh-huh.
one thing is out of whack, the business is out of whack. The business is kind of the result of all the other things being in good standing. And so that's my passion, right? I believe that's my purpose is to build other people. And I get to do that through real estate, whether it's through my clients and I'm helping them build a dream and find a home, or whether it's through my clients that I help by building their business. I do believe that God put me on this earth to love people, to serve people, to care about people, and to build other people. People live below their standard, their purpose.
Uh-huh.
Only 3% of women actually live to their purpose. And that makes me really sad. So I
Mhm.
enjoy being able to pour into other people and help them grow.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brandy.
Yes. Thank you.
I appreciate you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a
Okay.
good day.
You too. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me. If this episode encouraged you, I hope it felt like home. Remember that you're not alone. And if someone came to your mind while listening, please share this podcast. Take care and God bless.